Welcome back to The Deep Dive, where we take a stack of information articles, ancient texts, modern research, and really just filter out the noise to give you the pure, rational insights.
It's good to be back.
Today, we are stepping right into the heart of Vastu Shastra. We're focusing on one, often ignored yet profoundly important element, the main door threshold. You might know it as the Umbartha or Dahali.
It's a spectacular topic, really, because for so many people, the threshold isn't just architecture. It's become this powerful, sometimes fear-inducing religious icon.
Absolutely. And those myths, they travel fast. If you're building a home or even just thinking about design, I'm sure you've heard them.
Oh, definitely.
The big one is always about the material, right? Unless you use wood from this specific, sacred, and usually very rare tree, you're going to have terrible bad luck.
That one, or the paralyzing claim that if your threshold isn't made or worshipped correctly, Lakshmi, the principle of wealth, she just won't enter your home.
And that anxiety is exactly what we're here to cut through today. Our mission for this deep dive is to really distinguish between the two.
Right. On one hand, you have the true ancient energy science of Vastu, which is all based on observation, geometry, structural stability, centuries of experience.
Now the other.
The other is the commercialized, fear-based Vastu marketing culture that, frankly, dominates how people see it today.
So, okay, if we strip away the superstition, the marketing, and all the expensive advice, what's our core thesis for this deep dive?
I think the core thesis is this. The original design of the threshold was fundamentally scientific. It was structural. It was a prime example of ancient civil engineering and even psychological planning.
So we're looking for the rational reasons.
Exactly. We're investigating the physical and environmental reasons for its existence, focusing on measurable things like geometry, direction, and balance. Not blind faith, not magic.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the threshold wasn't primarily a ritualistic object, what was it actually designed to do in, a functional sense?
Well, the ancient texts, and just simple observation, point to three, really clear and interconnected reasons. They're all about making the home more efficient and peaceful.
And where do we start? What's the first one?
The first is the most tangible one. It's the structural and physical reason.
Okay.
The threshold provides just essential foundational support to the door frame. Think of it like the anchor at the very bottom. Without it, the whole frame becomes unstable over time.
So it literally holds the door together.
It does. And beyond that, it's a practical barrier. Historically, it was crucial for stopping rainwater, moisture, dirt, and, insects and pests from just crawling right into your home.
That's a huge defense layer, especially in older construction. So just lifting the sill plate a few inches solved half their environmental problem.
Precisely. It's simple, brilliant civil engineering. The second reason is a bit less about the physical and more about, the invisible. It's energy regulation.
Energy regulation? What do you mean by that? Like damping?
That's a great way to put it. Environmental and energetic damping. The threshold acts as a vital transition zone.
A transition zone from what to what?
Think of the outside world, the hustle, the noise, high winds, dust is high velocity energy. The inside of the home is meant to be calm, low velocity, protected.
Right.
That little bit of height from the threshold forces a softening of the incoming air, of the foot traffic. It makes the entry gradual instead of just an abrupt rush of chaos from outside.
So it's like a natural airlock, a velocity dampener that slows down the transition from the street to the sacred space of the home. It gives the space time to adjust.
Exactly. And that leads to the third reason, which is maybe the most profound in the Vastu context, psychological awareness and discipline.
How does a piece of wood create discipline?
Because it requires you to consciously lift your foot to cross it.
Mm-hmm.
That simple act encourages a subtle but powerful shift in your mental state.
Mm.
You have to practice a little humility, a little caution and mindfulness just to enter your own home.
I really like that, the idea of a mandatory pause. I remember visiting temples where the threshold was almost a knee-high step. You had to practically bow to get in. That's intentional, isn't it?
It is entirely intentional. The design forces a moment of intentional entry. It compels you to leave the thoughts and the speed of the outside world behind, even just for a second, before you step into that protected space.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. If those are the functional reasons, let's look at what the original texts say about this whole idea of protection and boundaries.
I'm glad you asked. The foundational shloka, or principle about the door system, is beautifully simple. It says, Dwaram dahasya shopayai rakanya chadahali.
And what does that mean?
It translates to, the door and the threshold are for shobha, which means beauty and adornment. and rakshan, which means protection.
So beauty and protection.
That's their job, to maintain a stable boundary between the dynamic outside and the peaceful inside. And as a result, that promotes sukham, peace, and happiness in the home.
And what's conspicuously missing from that core principle?
Any mention of a required wood type, any complex worship, any specific deity tied to the material itself. The value is in its function and its stability.
You also mentioned the idea of a damage threshold. In modern Vastu marketing, if a threshold breaks, it's like proof of impending disaster.
Right. But Vastu originally defined this as a functional problem, not a divine curse. If the threshold is damaged or neglected, meaning it's not doing its job, it causes structural and mental trouble. The texts call it klesha, or deep uneasiness, for the residents.
Okay, so klesha is the result of bad design, of instability, and that then impacts the human psyche. It's not the gods punishing you for using the wrong wood.
Not at all. It's the simple discomfort of a house that doesn't hold itself together properly. If the base of your door frame is cracked, you're going to have moisture problems, pest problems, structural weakness. That physical instability creates psychological klesha. Just makes sense.
Let's transition then. We've established the why structural integrity, boundary protection. Now let's tackle the elephant in the room. If engineering is so important, why does every modern Vastu consultant seem to focus almost exclusively on the specific wood?
This obsession with material is, I think, the clearest sign of the shift from Vastu as a science to Vastu as commerce. The modern argument is always, it must be expensive teak, or the warning, you have to avoid wood from sacred trees like peepal or banyan.
So what were the actual historical criteria for picking a wood?
They were purely pragmatic, purely technical. The ancients looked for a few key things. First, strength and durability, has to bear a load and last for generations.
Makes sense.
Second, resistance, specifically resistance to moisture, rot, and the huge problem of termites. And third, critically, local availability.
So they use things like teak, sal, and shisham because those woods have high oil content, incredible density, and natural termite resistance. They were just the best engineering materials available in those regions.
Exactly. Not because they held some kind of magic. It was pragmatic engineering. Now, let's look at the woods they advised against, like peepal and banyan. The modern story is they're too sacred to cut.
Which just feeds into the fear model. What does the original environmental science say?
Two things. First, those trees provide incredible shade and oxygen. They're vital to the ecosystem. Vastu, as an environmental science, valued preserving them. Second, they have notoriously aggressive root systems. They're terrible for building foundations.
So the advice to avoid them wasn't a curse?
No, it was an ecological directive and a structural warning. Don't cut down your best shade trees, and for heaven's sake, don't plant them near your foundation.
That is a crucial insight. So if we accept this technical focus, let's just summarize the main criteria for the door frame, the chakatnik.
Okay. So regardless of the material, the structure has to be straight, balanced, and strong. It should never make harsh, creaking sounds noise is the source of that klesha we talked about.
Yeah.
And critically, the door shouldn't open or close on its own. It has to be perfectly balanced. It must be stationary, signaling control, and stability.
This all leads to a pretty big takeaway then.
It does. The crucial insight is that Vastu energy, the balance the system is looking for, is fundamentally dependent on geometry, direction, and balance. These are universal architectural principles. It's not about the specific biological species of wood.
But hold on, here's a challenge. Wood is naturally warmer, maybe better at managing moisture. How can a cold, modern, metal and glass skyscraper entrance really align with these principles?
That's a great question. The principles are flexible because the core science is geometry. Modern materials, flush doors, engineered woods, metal frames, they do not automatically create a Vastu dosh or defect as long as the direction, measurement, and use are appropriate.
So a metal frame can be just as good.
If a metal frame is perfectly straight, perfectly stable, and perfectly positioned, it fulfills the criteria of geometry and stability. And those are far more important than the material's composition. The science adapts. The marketing is inflexible.
That's so important for anyone designing a modern home. We focus on the frame and threshold. But what about the door shutter itself, the pala? That also has a huge impact.
A massive impact. The shutter is the active part. It controls 4 key things that lead to sukham, or happiness. First, it controls airflow and ventilation. Second, it regulates light levels, which is crucial for psychological well-being. The difference between a harsh, glaring entryway and one with soft light is immense.
Absolutely. What are the other 2?
Third, it ensures privacy and security. that foundational sense of safety. And fourth, it provides sound control. In a busy city, a door's ability to filter out traffic and noise is paramount for maintaining that internal peace Vastu seeks.
So again, function over material pedigree.
Every time.
Let's look at the flip side now, Vastu marketing. We've established that true Vastu is flexible and functional. What happens when it enters the commercial world and meets a vulnerable consumer?
Yeah, we have to be really clear about the specific methods used in modern Vastu marketing, which often weaponize the spiritual meaning of the threshold for profit. The goal shifts from knowledge to dependence.
So what are the most common tactics we should look out for?
The first and the most powerful is fear-mongering. This involves explicit threats. Things like, if you don't change this material or install this expensive remedy, your problems, financial, health, whatever, will get worse.
It's emotional pressure. It forces you to comply without thinking.
Exactly. The second tactic is selling rare goods. They'll insist on a specific, imported, or rare material, a unique wood, a special stone, to drive up the cost and create this sense of urgency.
The thinking being, if it's expensive, it must work.
Right. The third is a lack of reference. They'll make these sweeping claims like, it's stated in the Shastras that you must do this, but they provide no citation, no context, no rational link back to the science. It's a command, not a teaching.
And the fourth?
Simply promoting blind faith. Shifting the focus entirely away from Vastu's scientific observational roots toward pure, uncritical superstition. It's a business model designed to keep the expert indispensable.
So if that's the distortion, let's just reiterate the true definition we're working with here.
True Vastu Shastra is, at its core, space planning plus human psychology plus environmental science. It's an energy science that seeks to coordinate the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and balance the directional influences. It's about the relationship between the human body, the mind, and the space they live in.
This definition makes that discussion about Lakshmi and the threshold so important. We always hear the wrong material blocks the goddess of wealth.
And that completely misses the point of the original Sanskrit concept. The shloka says Lakshmi resides in the boundary, but that Lakshmi is discipline, cleanliness, and a prosperous mindset.
Ah, so it's a quality, not a deity waiting to come in.
Exactly. The teaching is basically a code of conduct. Don't stumble over, neglect, or carelessly kick your threshold, because it represents the boundary of your own discipline and self-respect.
That is fascinating. So when someone stumbles over the threshold, they're showing a lack of mindfulness. That's the true Lakshmi they're failing to uphold.
That's the core meaning. The wealth Vastu cares about is the prosperity that comes from a well-ordered life, a clean space, and a focused mind. A person who respects their boundary is more likely to manage their resources well. The threshold is a physical reminder of that mental state.
It's so clear now.
And it brings us to the essential contrast. True Vastu gives you understanding. It empowers you. It doesn't spread fear or enforce costly commands.
This deep dive has completely cleared up my understanding of the Dahali. It's not a superstitious object. It's a critical structural component for protection, for energetic transition, and for mental discipline.
And we found that geometry, stability, and functional use are just so much more critical than the specific species of wood you choose.
So let's synthesize this into a quick Mythbuster guide for everyone listening.
Let's do it. MYP. The threshold is a worship item tied to costly rituals. Faksti. It's a structural and energy control element.
MYCH. Vastu equals blind, rigid superstition.
Vastu. It is adaptable space planning, psychology, and environmental science. The goal is to give you the rational tools to create a stable, tranquil home.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you. If Vastu is truly about balance, direction, and using architecture to shape human psychology, what parts of your modern living space, that chaotic pile of shoes by the door, the clutter just inside, that harsh entryway light, what might be disrupting your own sense of discipline and tranquility?
The answer to your klesha might not require a rare imported stone. It might just require a conscious weekend cleanup to restore the integrity of your energetic boundary.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it.
Our essential rule remains. Trust the rational, timeless principles of Vastu, but never ever shut down your faculty of critical thought. Work, effort, discipline, and a positive outlook are what truly create prosperity in any home, regardless of whether your threshold is teak or engineered wood.